So there's a lot of speculation that the hurricanes were weather weapons that targeted Trump voters by and large, areas that are disproportionately, that would vote red in the coming election versus the urban areas. So there's a few points that I want to talk about. One is that there is such a thing as weather modification. I wrote a book some years ago, and that was something I wrote in a paragraph. I talked about how there were experiments and there were patents and programs to spray aerosols, certain types of chemicals like salts and into the skies, and that's the so-called chemtrail conspiracy. It's not really a conspiracy, it's additives that they put in jet fuel, and the whole idea is, or at least the rationale is, that it's supposed to quote-unquote combat climate change. Also, in the 1930s, the Royal Air Force in England did cloud seeding, and they ended up flooding one of their towns as a result. It was something that, if you pay attention to this stuff, it's very famous, but most people are not aware of this. And of course, there's examples of China and also the United Arab Emirates also experimenting with this, getting it to rain in the desert, for example. So weather modification is a thing. It is something that actually does exist. It's not a conspiracy theory. Also, there are patents for weather weapons, patents to back in the 1970s to systems to steer hurricanes. There's ideas about how to ignite the troposphere, the ionosphere, with ions to heat it up, to change the weather. It's called HARP up in Alaska. There's similar programs. Other countries have programs like this. I mentioned United Arab Emirates and China. So weather weapons is a concept that's been around for many decades. And actually, as a side note, they ought to be classified as a weapon of mass destruction, considering the geographic expanse that the effect has and the potential to do as much damage and kill as many people as it does. So now there's speculation that the two previous hurricanes that hit the United States, Helene and Milton, were weather weapons, pointing out the fact that these storms were unusual. Yes, there were some features that were unusual. However, it doesn't follow that these are necessarily weather weapons. I'm not saying that they're not. I mean, hypothetically, they could be. The technology is there. There was a lot of money dumped into these programs, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if there's some program that was aimed at steering hurricanes, developing, dissipating hurricanes, etc. Yes, they're unusual. However, when I was a kid, I had an interest in meteorology. I wanted to be a storm chaser when I was a kid. I was fascinated about weather phenomena. And hurricanes like Milton and Helene, storms have existed like that in the past. Hurricanes, for example, Milton went and developed in Mexico, traveled east, and hit the west coast of Florida. Yes, that's rare, but it has happened before, and it doesn't require a weather weapon to make something like that happen. If you look at specific other weather phenomena, you look at the wind shear and other pressure systems in that area in the southern North America geographic region. You look at water temperatures. You look at, they call steering currents. So that's, for example, like the wind shear. And like I said, the other pressure systems in the area. But they combine that, and you have sort of this fluid dynamic where you have steering currents. And such a setup is possible. But usually under a situation like that, there's usually a lot of wind shear and you don't get tropical development. It just happened to be that way. Now, was it a result of a weather weapon? That's a possibility. I can't say that it isn't, but I wouldn't be so sure that it is either. So what I'm saying is that it's a conspiracy theory. It's the theory that these storms were weather weapons is just that it is a theory. I've seen some of the so-called arguments that people are making that these are weather weapons, and to be very blunt, they're not very good arguments. Again, not saying that they're not weather weapons, but the case is just not there. As far as the idea that this is supposed to help Kamala Harris, just the opposite. It looks like this is actually hurting Kamala Harris a lot more because she's just inept and she's a psychopath. She doesn't like to deal with people, and she's a liar. And it's so, she's such an idiot that she makes it obvious to other people. So these incidences are actually hurting her image more than anything. So anyway, so that's my thoughts on that.